Greetings. My name is Brother Scott, and I believe that with faith, courage, and discipline, we will prevail. Today's topic, so we're going to continue into our building our dynasty playlist. All right. So remember, as an underdog, our purpose in life is to pursue our calling and to build our dynasty. And we've already talked about the pursuing your calling part. Now we're going to continue with the building the dynasty. We talked about creating a plan to build a dynasty, and we've talked about understanding female attraction. And just in case you forgot, a dynasty is a family with businesses, assets, and knowledge that can be passed down from generation to generation. We create a plan to build a dynasty, and then we have to understand female attraction, so that way, if we want someone to build that dynasty with us, to be a part of that dynasty, we understand how to attract that potential partner, okay? The next thing we're gonna go into is we're gonna talk about determining if you are ready for a relationship, okay? All right, so now that you understand attraction, we're gonna have to determine whether or not you're ready for a relationship, okay? Here we go. First thing, are you competent in your calling? Do not entertain a serious relationship until you are competent in your calling. When you are at the beginning stages of pursuing your calling, do not split your time between pursuing your calling and pursuing a relationship. All right? Your calling should take priority in the beginning. In the beginning, your calling should take priority. Okay? Now, let's break that down. So remember, a calling is a lifelong mission that you're passionate about that provides value to others, okay? And if you haven't started on that lifelong mission yet, or if you're not as, let's say you've only given a little bit of time to pursuing your calling, that is not the time to try to enter a serious relationship. This is why I'm telling you, you need to be competent in your calling first. Become competent. And then after that, once you receive a level of competency that you feel comfortable with, right, where you're actually providing value to others, then that's where you can go ahead and start considering a serious relationship, okay? Now, if you're just starting your calling, okay, that doesn't mean that you can't date at all. That doesn't mean that you have to cut, women out of your life completely until you become competent in your calling. What I'm telling you is just don't try to enter a serious relationship, all right? Your calling, at least initially at the beginning, should take that priority. And then you can start looking at, okay, my calling, I'm pretty competent in it, I'm providing value to others, I can consider a serious relationship, okay? Now, this is important. Becoming competent in your calling will increase your overall happiness. A lot of people struggle with, being depressed and sad and lonely and things of that nature. Being competent in your calling will make you a much happier person. You do not need to rush into a relationship to be happy, okay? You should not expect your partner to be the sole source of your happiness. So when you finally end up getting into a relationship and finding a partner, she should not be the sole and only source of your happiness, right? Because you have your calling, all right? She doesn't want to be the sole source of your happiness. Your calling was there before she was there. We understand. So this is why I'm telling you, you need to become competent in your calling first before you try to enter some type of serious relationship. Okay, let's use an example. Okay, let's say you're calling. Okay, let's say you're a guitarist. You're a guitarist. You're part of a band, and let's say you're just getting started. Right, you got your homeboys together. You guys are doing local gigs, and maybe you guys only have 2 or 3 songs you know how to play really good. All right. And let's say a woman comes along. If you're not competent in your calling yet, what can end up happening is when you start devoting time to your partner or potential partner, it's going to take away from your calling. It's going to take away from the calling and the time and energy that you need to become competent in that calling. You understand? It's much better to just go ahead and get competent, start providing that value where you're doing gigs, where you're doing shows, where it's like second nature to you. And then you go and start pursuing relationships. Does that make sense? Because as I stated before, your happiness is going to come from that calling that you have. And so if, let's say, for example, things don't work out too well with that potential partner or with someone that you've been in a relationship with, well, guess what? It's going to suck that the relationship is over. It's going to suck that you guys broke up. But boom, you got your calling. You got your calling already right there to go back to. You understand? Your calling is already right there. You can go right back to it. It's something that you're already competent in. You already know what you're doing. You with your boys, or you with the people that are benefiting from the value that you provide. And it's the breakup is not as big of a deal as it would be if you were not competent in that calling. You understand? All right, so that was the first thing. When determining if you're ready for a relationship, you need to ask yourself, are you competent in your calling? Next thing, do you have a plan for your dynasty? What is a dynasty? A dynasty is a family with businesses, assets, and knowledge that can be passed down from generation to generation. Okay? So do you have a plan for that dynasty? My first point, have a plan for business and asset ownership. We've already talked about that. We talked about that in the very beginning of this playlist, in the very beginning of this series where we talked about creating a plan to build a dynasty. So if you haven't already done that yet, then probably not ready for a relationship. You understand? Have a plan to build that family with businesses, assets, and knowledge, right? To be passed down generation to generation. Become familiar with estate planning. All right? You do not need to become an expert. All right? You don't need to become an expert at estate planning, your estate, but when the time comes, you can hire professionals to assist you. Okay? You have estate planners, you have lawyers, financial advisors, so on and so on and so forth, right? So start familiarizing yourself. What does an estate consist of? Okay, what is property? What is real property? What is personal property? What is tangible personal property? What is intangible personal property? There's a lot to go into, or there's a lot to understand when we talk about your estate, everything that you own, the things that you're going to be passing down to the next generation, okay? And so become familiar with that, all right? And then when the time comes, when it's time to start putting things in place, all right, whether it's a trust or a will or whatever the case is, you can go to those professionals, right? You can go to an estate planner. You can go to a lawyer, financial advisor, insurance person, whatever, and start putting those things together so it's nice and airtight. You understand? All right. And then you can't predict the future, right? You can't predict what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day or the next year or the next 5 years. You can't predict the future, but you can plan for it, right? And then if you plan, for a certain thing to take place, or you plan for certain scenarios, just understand that there are times where you may have to alter your plans when necessary. Okay? So having a plan for your dynasty is a very complex thing. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, this is something you can do overnight. But that's why you go into planning, and that's why you do your independent personal research, so you understand what you're doing, and you get the appropriate appropriate professionals involved, so you can start putting things in place for that dynasty you're building. Okay? Now, the next thing when you're determining if you're ready for a relationship, you need to ask yourself, are you an attractive man? Right? Because if you're trying to enter into a relationship and you're not attractive, you're going to have some trouble. Well, it's going to be more difficult, okay? And remember, when I say attraction, when I talk about being an attractive man, I'm not just talking about looks. Looks, it goes beyond looks. Remember, go up to my previous videos where I talked about understanding what women are attracted to. Go up to those previous videos. I'll briefly recap. All right? There's 4 primary attributes of attraction. You start off at the very bottom with physical appearance, right? Physical appearance is important, but it's not the most important thing. So you have your physical appearance, financial security, then on top of that, social status, and then on top of that, confidence. So what you need to look at is, have you maximized your physical appearance? And when I talk about that, look at those previous videos so you can understand what exactly are women attracted to when it comes to physical appearance. If we're starting at the bottom, you can only control so much, remember. But with hygiene, with some type of exercise routine and a diet, you'll be fine. Okay? And then after physical appearance, we talked about financial security. All right? You don't need to be a millionaire or a billionaire or have millions of dollars of assets right now. Okay? Do you have things to ask yourself? Do you have a skill set in demand? Okay? Doctor, lawyer, or even electrician. Do you have a skill set that is in high demand that people are going to need? All right? That's one question you can ask yourself, all right? And then even if it's not a high demand skill, are you stable? Are you just financially stable? Okay? Can you take care of your damn self? You don't have to sit there and have your mom and dad check on you. Are you able to financially take care of yourself and your necessities? Okay? Do you have a respectable level of social status? Okay? It doesn't mean that you have to be a movie star or some type of rap artist. It doesn't mean you have to be this super internationally famous individual. It goes, I talk more on the lines of, are you respected in your occupation? Are you respected in your social group? Right? That still equates to social status, you understand? And that's one of those things that women are attracted to. They gravitate to social status, okay? And then of course, the most important attribute is, are you a confident man? Okay? Remember, I said you don't have to be, a UFC heavyweight champion, all right? You ain't got to be no gang leader, all right? You don't have to be the bad boy or the jerk or the asshole to be a confident individual, okay? But when you look at all the different attributes, the primary attributes of attraction, you need to be honest with yourself and gauge whether or not you're an attractive man or not. Because it's just going to make it hard. If you haven't worked, right, to pursue your calling and to build your dynasty, that's probably going to be an indication that you're probably not an attractive guy. All right? Because pursuing your calling, building your dynasty, so with the exception of the physical attraction, Pursuing your calling and building your dynasty makes you more attractive because it makes you more financially secure. It makes you it gives you a respectable level of social status. Whether you're pursuing your calling and you're providing value to others, or you're building your dynasty and you're building that reputation of being the best barber or the best painter or the best tattoo artist or the best streamer, whatever. And then, of course, with the confidence, as you're building your following, your fan base, your clientele, you become a more confident individual because now you're more confident in your abilities. You're more confident in your network. You're more confident in your every overall aspect of your life, which ultimately makes you an attractive man. It makes you a catch. Think about it. Okay? So yeah, ask yourself, are you an attractive man? All right? And then the last thing, when you're determining if you're ready for a relationship, ask yourself, are you independent? Are you an independent person, right? You should be self-sufficient and stable. That's pretty straightforward, okay? You should not be indebted to others. Now, when I say indebted, I'm not talking about, oh, you have a car payment or you have a house and you have, a mortgage. I'm not talking about that type of debt. You understand? I'm talking about if you borrowed $500 from your mama and you ain't pay that stuff back. I'm talking about if your sister who's in college, you asking her for money and she gotta take the little money that she make from her fast food job to help you out, and you still ain't pay her back. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about regular stuff like having a car note, having a mortgage, or something along those lines. Things that you need. You need a place to stay. You need a car note. You understand? Or you need a car. Or maybe you don't. But depending on what you do and what your life consists of, you may need a car. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. You should not be indebted to other people. You understand? Especially people in your social circle, in your personal life. And then the last thing is, when I talk about are you independent, is do you have your own set of values and principles that you live by? Okay? You have your own values, your own principles, and you are your own person. So you already know I'm about to mention. So you should at the very least have those core values of an underdog, which is faith, courage, and discipline. And then if there's any morals or guiding principles that you also live by that have served you well, if you have those, then that's an indication that you're an independent individual because you can march to the beat of your own drum. You know how you feel about this topic. You know how you feel about this subject. You have an approach as far as how you deal with situations, how you deal with people, how you deal with problems, right? And you are a self-sufficient person that can think for themselves. We understand. So these are the things you need to consider when you're determining for a relationship. Or when you're determining if you're ready for a relationship, all right? Now, today we talked about when you're determining if you're ready for a relationship, we determined that you need to ask yourself, are you competent in your calling? Do you have a plan for your dynasty? Are you an attractive man? And are you independent? We understand. This is probably one of the most straightforward videos, but I still put this information out there because we can rush. It's so easy to rush into a relationship without giving yourself an honest assessment of where you're at and what you're doing in your life. And so these questions here you need to ask yourself before you rush into a relationship, okay? Now, if you haven't already, if you have not already, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and donate. And always remember, with faith, courage, and discipline, we will prevail.